Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into something absolutely fascinating, the anatomy of mass manipulation. We're going to impartially map out the exact psychology behind how populations react to propaganda. It's an incredibly interesting lens through which to view human behavior, and it breaks down societal reactions in a way that's both super simple and highly provocative.
So, how easily are people hoodwinked and manipulated? It's a question that taps right into our own social survival instincts. We all love to think, hey, I'm completely independent, right? But this analysis asks us to step back and honestly evaluate human vulnerability. If a massive narrative just drops on a population, how quickly do they fold? Well, there's actually a very definitive answer.
Okay, let's dive into this, because societal behavior basically breaks down into this remarkably straightforward 30-40-30 framework. It's kind of like a giant puzzle. You've got 30% who are hypnotized, 40% who just comply with the crowd, and a remaining 30% who act as critical thinkers. It is a bold mapping of society, and we are going to explore it slice by slice.
Let's start by isolating that first chunk, 30%. Nearly a third of any given population makes up this initial group. And what really defines them is their immediate, almost reflexive reaction when they're handed an agenda. There's no pause, no hesitation, and absolutely zero questioning from this demographic.
They aren't just, casually agreeable. The source actually describes them as hypnotized and mesmerized. It's a seriously powerful state of mind. This group gets swept up instantly in the messaging, entirely losing their individual agency to whatever that overarching narrative happens to be.
So why does this happen? Well, it often boils down to the halo effect of a beloved leader. Because of this intense adoration and trust, this group totally misses the reality behind the curtain. They become, frankly, completely blind to the leader's actual ill intentions or selfish agendas. Their loyalty to the persona just completely overrides any critical evaluation of the agenda itself.
All right, let's move along and see how this builds as we check out the next segment, 40%. This is actually the largest single slice of the population in this framework. And psychologically speaking, this is where we find the absolute most fascinating behavioral tension. Their internal experience is just night and day compared to that blindly loyal 30%.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really profound cognitive dissonance. See, unlike that first group, this 40% is highly skeptical. They actively sense the misinformation and the disinformation. They literally know they are being misled. Yet despite having the cognitive awareness to spot the manipulation, their ultimate action is to simply go along with the crowd. They choose to comply anyway.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the specific motivation driving them. It's not about true belief at all. It's entirely about self-preservation. They simply don't want to upset the apple cart. Think about the intense pressure to agree with a loud coworker or a trending social media mob. It's the path of least resistance. Their compliance is a direct result of being terrified of the consequences of speaking out.
Because to upset that cart means facing the wrath of the masses. This middle 40% is strictly driven by the fear of crowd retribution. They look around, they see the 30% who are totally entranced, and they decide, okay, silence is an acceptable price to pay for safety. It's infinitely easier to just join the crowd rather than stick your neck out and become a target.
So, if 70% of society is either hypnotized or just too afraid to speak up, who's left? Well, this final 30% provides a truly stark contrast in human behavior.
These are defined as the critical thinkers. These are the folks who think for themselves, look at the situation objectively, and honestly remain completely immune to the manipulation capturing the rest of society. They don't fall for the beloved leader's charm, and there's no way they're intimidated by the wrath of the masses.
Crucially, they aren't just quietly observant. They are rebellious. When they spot those selfish agendas and the disinformation, their objective evaluation compels them to actively push back and fight injustice. They basically act as the proactive counterweight to all the manipulation happening around them.
So, the crucial point is seeing this anatomy of mass manipulation at a glance. You've got 30% hypnotized by the agenda, 40% compliant out of sheer fear, and a final 30% standing as a critical, rebellious counterweight. It's a fascinating, highly structured view of society under pressure.
All of this leaves us with an incredibly powerful question. When the crowd starts moving, which group do you belong to?
I mean, it's super easy to just assume we're all the critical thinkers, right? But this framework really challenges us to honestly reflect on our own vulnerabilities to a charismatic leader or that deep-seated fear of going against the grain. I really hope this explainer sparked your curiosity to explore human psychology even further. Thanks so much for joining me today.